Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. My name is Andy Wilson, and it's so great that you're joining us again. I want to first thank you for all that you're doing as our viewers, and you're helping us so much. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for viewing it. And I have just been told that we're now viewed in over 20 countries. Thank you for that. You're making that happen today. I am so excited today to introduce my guest today, Rick. Welcome so much. It's so good to have you back.
Listen, it is great to be back and a new environment here. You're doing some great things with DBB, doing business in Bentonville, and this the podcast. So congratulations on your success there.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Rick West is a friend. And when we had the opportunity to text recently and then talk about what's going on at Field Agent. It's a lot going on, and he's going to share that with us today. But Rick, now, let's just talk about your role currently. We're going to talk about some transition in a moment. But then let's just talk about this great company that you've been part of for a long time. You're the CEO. You have led this company for a long time. And share with our audience, what is Field Agent?
Well, I like to say we're a 14-year overnight success story. How about that? You know, it takes a while to make this work.
Yeah.
But most people would know Field Agent, especially on the consumer side, is just a mystery shopping app. I can go, and while I'm shopping, I can buy a product, get reimbursed for it. I can do ratings and reviews. I can capture data. And we pay individuals. On the business side, the B2B side of this, I think for the last 14 years, people have looked at Field Agent as a data collections company because we can collect out-of-stocks pricing. Virtually anything you're looking at retail, if you have public access, we can capture data. What we started to transition into over the last year, this is kind of what we talked about the last time, is that now we're not only a data collections company, we're a data company. So we're providing user interface and engagement through our machine learning and some AI on top of it, so that not only are we providing you data, we're giving you a very easy way to be able to engage, analyze, see trends. So I'm not just dumping data on you and saying good luck. I'm providing a very interesting way to look at that data. So that's been pretty cool for us. And that partnership we talked about has turned into an acquisition.
Right.
We just acquired Shelfgram a couple of weeks ago. And that allows us to bring that in-house. And as we've always said, for many things in life, you're kind of better together. So we look at that acquisition as making us better, and it's really going to change the way people look at our company.
Okay, so congratulations on your acquisition.
Thank you.
On Shelfgram. Tell us a bit about that company. And then for our viewers that may not know so much history about your company, how's that going to integrate into what you're doing? How's that going to help your clients? And if you're viewing us, listening or viewing us, and you're not a client, this may be an opportunity to talk about that.
Could be an opportunity.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the founder of Shelfgram, his name is Bram, and we'll put all of his LinkedIn or connection information in the notes here. But Bram came from a category perspective back in the day, did some technology work, and he was really looking for a way to bring the shelf walk and turn it into a virtual shelf walk. And so he knew conceptually what he was trying to do with data, but needed a data provider. So about 18 months ago, we started in Canada, and we started looking at categories and asking the question, if I did a store walk today, what would I be looking for? And so it was just obvious things, Andy, for anyone that deals at retail, is that you want to know the new items. You want to understand pricing changes. What does the shelf really look like? And if I look at adjacencies, how does that play out? But more importantly, and this is where Field Agent comes in for the scale, Brand provided that in a very user-friendly way, do heat maps, do all the things you would expect. But then we're saying, look at the work you do with an RI or a Nielsen. What if I told you I could give you that same virtual store walk, compare it across 400 consistent stores over every retailer you can think of? Now that insight isn't, I'm at a store physically looking at it. I want to understand across change from a Target to a Walmart to a Costco. I want to understand what's changed. So get up on Monday morning. Guess what, Andy? There's 3 new items in the south side of Chicago that popped up. And you're like, oh, my goodness, I didn't know that. And so what does it really look like? Was it 1 chain? Was it 2? How did it play out?
Right.
In South Florida, you've got a pricing issue. And pricing began to change. So all of that data has been around for a while with Field Agent. But Shelfgram allows us to see it in a virtual way that doesn't require me to spend hours looking at data. And then as we learn more, hence AI, you learn more, you start to realize for Andy, who's a category management person or a brand person for household cleaning, I start to understand what's important to you, the top competitive items you're looking at. I understand really the key locations and begin to understand really what makes it tick so that when you come in the morning, you're not looking at thousands of data points. You're seeing the things that you want to see, and we're starting to project out for you to let you know what's going on.
That sounds wonderful. If I'm a category manager, supplier, you have just helped me become better and help the retailer also from that standpoint because they can manage those categories better.
Yeah. But think of the questions. For years, you could capture data, and again, there's a ton of companies around here that let you do a great job with retail link data, pulling it in. But what about the why? So we're now giving you the why, and I'm starting to ask the question for you. You didn't even think to ask this question, but I'm letting you know this is happening in Southern California. You're like, well, I didn't even think about Southern California. Right. I'm telling you today you need to start looking at it because I'm seeing a trend. Well, for most people that deal with scale like this, you might need 5-10 analysts to just crank through data all the time, but we're saying, no. Not only can I give you the visual aspect of it and the data, but I'm giving you a platform, Shelfgram, that allows you to do it in a very, very user-friendly way.
Now, when is this going to roll out? I know you just announced the acquisition, so what's the timeline?
Well, the good news is we've been doing a partnership of data, coming to Shelfgram.
Right.
You could come in today, and we'll put a link again in the notes where someone could come in today and look at the hundreds of categories we're already capturing. And I'll use household cleaning as an example because I've played around with that a little bit. I can show you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, and I can show you in the U.S. and Canada exactly what's changed across every retailer on household cleaning.
Wow.
Today, you can come in and see that data.
Yeah.
And I've got another 50, 75 categories that I have 3, 6, 9, 12 months worth of data. And if I don't have your category in near real time, by the end of next week, I'll get you the 400 or 500 stores across the retailers so you can see exactly what's going on. The big news for us as you look at the integration piece, which is going to come a little bit later, is not only do you see the virtual store walk, and I understand, and I've got these alerts and things that are popping in, there'll be a point in time where you're saying, now that I understand what's going on at Target in a region or Walmart in a region, I now need to see every store or I need to check something specific, and you'll be able to launch field agent jobs to go collect additional information that'll simply pile on top of that. That's kind of to come. But the good news is, today there's no reason to ever get on a flight, drive around, check anything out. And if someone else is sending you data, we'll even take your data, photos, and we get uploaded in so you've got one place for that virtual store walk.
Now, and this is for any supplier, right?
Correct.
I mean, all suppliers, you're able to do this for all suppliers.
That's correct. If you can get into a physical address,
right,
I can now give you a virtual store walk and alerts and tell you what's happening from a trend standpoint at any location. Now, we'll start playing around with quick serve restaurants in a bit. We already do that work with Field Agent, but that's kind of to come. But think of it as classic brick and mortar. What does it look like? Now, we dabble a little bit on the digital side, which is the whole Omnicom piece. For example, we do the circulars or flyers. We've been pulling that data in. We've got every circular, every flyer you can imagine, and that's just free. You can come in and try to understand, well, what's really going on with ads? What's really going on with the communication going out in newspapers and digitally? So we pull that in as well. And you'll see that continue to populate as our customers are asking us. I'm already paying supplier or agency A or B for this. Can I integrate it in, or could you provide it? And that's where this thing is going to be a really holistic, conversation to say it's really a one-stop shop for the data you need.
Now, on the ads and flowers, can you do that digitally? Also, can you track
it's everything online, kind of pulling it, so it kind of pulls it in together.
Yeah, okay, good.
Now, there's 100 people that'll scrape prices, and we're not dealing with that right now, but that's another story for another day. Yeah. But the important part here is we're transitioning from collecting data for a point in time to being a data company, so it's a longitudinal conversation.
All right.
And now imagine you're coming in, someone says, well, how long has that been going on? I just noticed it. Well, I can tell you it happened 22 days ago. I can tell you it happened 6 months ago. Or good news, it just happened this week.
Right.
It's mind-blowing.
That's exciting times.
It is.
It is. And also, when you were here last, I know your companies continue to grow globally, correct?
Yes.
Update us on that.
Yeah, so we had acquired Simply Field a couple of years ago, and it's a pure SaaS move. Instead of using field agents to capture data for you, you can use your own employees. So we have companies here in the U.S. and companies global. I think we're in 65 countries with Simply Field. And virtually any place you can imagine, we're capturing data at store locations and we're sending out tasks. So it's not a true labor management system, but it is providing tasks for retail employees or associates or third parties, and we're capturing data back in. Oftentimes with Field Agent, they would ask the same question. Hey, love what you're getting across every Walmart store, but I've got employees that are out, 50 sales reps. Could we use your system to let my sales reps do this? And it was just kind of rigging the system. It really wasn't built for it. Now we have a solution for that. Simply Field comes in. So where you have labor that you're already paying, we have an avenue for you to capture data. Where you don't have that labor, we have our agents, 1099 people, and we can capture the data for you there. Yeah, so it's pretty efficient for you because you don't want to pay for something twice.
Right.
But at the same time, you're never going to have the scale we have with Field Agent.
Wonderful. Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, Rick, how long have you been CEO at Field Agent?
It's been 14 years.
Okay. Wow.
Birthed this thing from the iPhone 3S, no front-facing camera, no video, back in the hardcore days. I remember Karen.
Love to shoe over.
I remember Karen Terrell, who was the CTO for Walmart. We were engaging in one of their events. I remember her just looking at us. She's like, that really is the future. Because we're putting QR codes and everything's happening at shelf. Yeah. And she just looked at us and she said, I'll never let a news crew go in without permission. But I can see where our millions of shoppers are going to be walking around their phones. And this is in 2010. Right. And she was exactly right. Yeah. That's the world that we live in today. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve there. So that's been a great 14 years kind of developing that technology.
But you're right. Our phone is our store now.
Totally.
Exactly is. I mean, we all
shop, check it out, check the price online. Do I want to buy it here? Do I want to ship it to my home?
Oh, it's awesome.
It's right there.
It's great. But what's so great about it, you have led your company through, the startup and now through this reinvention, if you will, and for the future. So you've done that, you and your team. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. It's just, as any entrepreneur or small business person be out there, it's one thing to get your first customer, the first few $1,000s. Then you get into the hundreds of customers and then the first $1 million. Then you get into multi-millions. Then you get into tens of millions. So when you look at that 14 years, there have been a couple of hurdles. One, we made it past the 7-year curse.
Yeah.
Not a lot of folks make it past 7. And the second thing is we're finally at scale, multiple countries, multiple millions, thousands of clients. Yeah. So we're at this scale point to where we're no longer this small business startup. Right. It's time for us to scale. And we knew from a management standpoint kind of where we're going, we really need to begin looking at who is going to lead us into that next direction, which is the transitional conversation for me.
Well, let's have that because you're still going to be around, but talk about and tell our viewers the transition that's about to take place in your life.
Yeah. So as of a couple of weeks ago, I'm no longer CEO at Field Agent, but over the last few years, as we looked at the growth of the company and where things are going, I'm confident in the direction, the strategy, all the things associated with that.
Sure.
But as we were getting ready for our last acquisition of Shelfgram, which is our fourth acquisition and our largest to date, so it was the scale was there and the pressure for this to work and the magnitude of the dollars and what we're trying to do. And so I just came to our private equity guys and said, listen, I'm all in here. Let's go drive this thing. But you really need someone else to come in and take the reins for a couple of reasons. Number one, I had some health issues that we'll talk about a little bit. We'll kind of break that out. And the other piece is, while I had great Procter & Gamble background, I understand how to lead and a visionary and take a company to X, it may make sense to bring somebody in that's been there, done that, that's taken a company. Not necessarily that we're counting on an IPO, but he's taken a company to an IPO. You know, the new guy has done the type of work that's in front of us, that's worked with the hundreds of millions of dollars, that type of company. And I had to set my ego on the shelf over here a little bit and say, still chairman of the board, still an owner, vested, really interested, but it made sense for someone else to come in and take us to that next step. While I deal with some health issues, that made sense for me to kind of get things in order.
You know, I think one of the things as I listen to you talk and I think about it, how did you process getting ready to do this? Because as a guy, okay, we have all these egos and stuff, and it's hard to give up. It's hard to step to a new role. How did you get there? Because it's hard for us.
It is difficult. I know. I started out by you talk with my wife. I talk with my friends. I've got people that know me as Rick, and kind of had that conversation of I am not field agent. Field agent is the be all see all. I mean, this isn't who I am. Then as I started stepping back from that, really ask the question that we always ask our kids. And we ask our kids all the time, what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay?
Yeah.
And then what's the best thing that can happen in whatever decision you're making? And I said, the worst thing that happens, and I'm like, maybe it doesn't go the direction I want, but it's still going to be successful. And so, and I started, peeling that back and said, gosh, but my fingerprints are still there, and it's still, I was a co-founder, and I've got Henry and Kelly, my two co-founders, that are still there. I said, well, there really wasn't any true downside to the company. They look at me personally and it's like, well, what's the downside? Well, I'm not going to have to check email all the time, and I'm not going to get phone calls. I'm not going to be talking to France at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, so that became better. I says, gosh, there's really not a lot of downside. So then the question you ask your friends or kids are making big decisions, what's the best thing? And I said, well, I can check on my health. I'm going to have more time for my family here. And instead of being an operator, maybe I can be the strategic advisor, board chairman that I really should be, because being a board chairman, a CEO is different than a step back. And so maybe this is a positive thing for me to have influence in a different way. And I had to be okay with that. So that was the processing. And I realized the downside really wasn't significant at all.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that I'm hearing, and I think this is for, and I'm going to call the male audience out, if you will. I like what you did, how you really said, here are the questions. And I'm sure it took you time to work through this.
Months.
Yeah, months. And it should take months.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah.
And it's taken you years, though, to prepare your team so you can do this.
Completely. I am confident Mark Yan, our president and COO, can take care of everything. He's the guy that's got to run the machine. And I've taught him what I can teach him. I mean, we've been together for 14 years here, and Ty, the new person coming in, will be able to teach him other things. So that's great. But I felt really confident in the team.
Right.
I knew from a business standpoint and the strategy and where we're going, confident there. The board is strong and all the things that we're making. And so you have to then say, well, if that's true, do I still have to be the guy?
Right.
And that's the part you have to kind of check over here a little bit and say, I don't really need to be the guy, but I still want to have influence. I mean, I'm a control person. I'm trying to control all these things in my life. And you know, my youngest daughter Sarah says, you know, Dad, you're an Enneagram 8. You're driving me crazy. You're trying to control everything. So I've got some control things. I'm trying to back off that a little bit. So think about changing that word control to influence. So now the question is, instead of control, which is the buck stops with me, and I could, you can make a decision, Andy, but at the end of the day, I'm still the guy with the thumb over here too. Now, you're going to come to me with a question, and I'm going to influence that, but I don't have the final say. And that's a really interesting transition for a leader, someone that's really in every day and working hard. And you know, I just love the deal, and I love the entrepreneurial piece and making decisions and solving problems. And now I've got to step back and say, okay, how can I influence that? And Andy, you're going to make the decision. It'll all be okay. And so I'm not there yet, but I know that's the key word for me. Control to influence. And that should be an interesting journey for a guy like me.
It should be. And I can't wait to hear about that journey. In fact, I made a note. I think you have to come back and tell us about that journey, because so many of us need to understand the journey that you're on and the learnings from that and how you can share that, because most A-type personalities, we're not good at that. And, well, Rick, first of all, congratulations on what you have accomplished and the company's accomplished. It's exciting about what you're talking about your next season is on the influence. You will probably end up supporting, helping, and influencing in even a greater way for the future of the company. You know, and I mean, when you birth something, you've prepared. Sounds like. Tell us about your new CEO a bit.
Yeah, Ty Kasperbauer, and so Ty came from. I think his first 10 years was with Revlon. So he truly, and for most private equity guys and VCs, they don't get what we do. It's hard for them to understand retail, but we live in the retail world. I mean, Andy, to us, it's like, it's nothing. So when you start looking at people that can really help you, they immediately dive into, tell me about the shopper, and I want to understand the shopper. I'm like, no, you've really got to understand retail. So this guy, Ty, back in his early days, has actually been out with merchandisers. He set a shelf. I mean, he totally understands it.
Grew up in it.
And then his career after that took him into a couple of small businesses, then in a couple of larger businesses, where he became a leader. And all of the last 20 years, arguably 15 years, have all been SaaS, B2B SaaS businesses, which is really what we needed. So he's got the right background and the right approach to be able to take us to the next level. And that's where I was talking through for someone that's been there, done that. My Procter experience has trained me like, no one else. My international experience, all that's great. But I've never taken a company public. I've never grown a small business like this from 10, 20, 30 million to 50, 100 million dollars, and he has. And so there's something to be said for a person living it, driving it, as opposed to me saying, hey, can you coach me once a month and kind of help me think through the things I don't know? So really, really happy with that. And because he's not the co-founder and it isn't his baby he's birthed, it's not his son or daughter, he can ask the ugly questions that I would be like, we don't want to talk about that. It'll be okay. He's like, maybe we need to open that up a little bit. And you've heard the statement, as a CEO, can you operate like you're a brand new CEO and ask those questions? And that's so much harder to do than you think. Because I already know the answer. I didn't want to ask the question. And then he's going to ask it like, that's probably not the right answer.
That's right.
And so that fresh look on things is less about strategy. It's more of the next phase of the company. And I'm confident he's going to take us there.
You know, your statement there reminded me one time Sam Walton told us we were meeting and we needed to transition and do some things. And I remember he shared with us. He said, I'm going to put a group together. And he did. And this group interviewed us. But he had that group to act like that they did not work at the company and they couldn't hold back on the questions. And then he reviewed it. It was a pivotal time in the company. Sam said, look, we can bring in outsiders, but I want you to ask the outside questions. And you know what? There were some major changes done in the company, And this was probably the late 80s at the time. And super centers were beginning to, all that. But it was an internal review. And it
That's
was
healthy.
It was so healthy. And what you just said, like Ty coming in, he can have that view now. He can ask those hard
Not as a consultant who walks away. He has to eat what he cooks,
and that's
which is beautiful.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Sam said. You're not. That's why he chose outside. He said, "I want the inside to ask the right questions, because you have to go now execute this."
Right.
And that's why he did it. So I love your thought on that. We wish Ty the best. I look forward to meeting him sometime.
We'll have him here next time.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have a couple more questions. Okay, and one is, you mentioned about your health, and I've asked Rick Fryer, so can we talk about that? And he's going to talk about it, and he's going to share some things, and then I want you to leave us though with some insights. Okay. In this whole world of retail, omni-channel, maybe are some learnings you have. So if you don't mind, share with us about your health.
And looking at me, I don't look like I'm falling apart. I've got some warts and things we can work on here, Andy. But I'm going to back up to about 12 years ago. A good friend of mine that worked for Procter & Gamble, his name was Kenny Shields. He was running a big piece of the business for P&G here. And you see him one day, and the next day he's feeling bad and dies of a sudden heart attack, and he's gone, 49 years old. Just tragedy. And so I'm sitting around with a group of guys, and we're all like, I see the doctor. Do you see the doctor? It's like, well, yeah, to get a Z-Pack. I mean, once a year I go see the doctor because they won't sell me the Z-Pack over the counter. I got to go get a script. And so you go to a Ready Clinic or a Medi Clinic. You can make that happen. And none of us were really taking our health serious. And so at that time, I can remember hearing Mark Cuban talk about his health and how he was a numbers guy. And I looked at my friends. I'm like, we're all numbers guys. I mean, data drives everything we do. And this was the comment that had me go down a path that'll get me to the decision I made now 7 months ago. He said, when you look at your numbers, he said, don't be an industry average. If I go to retail, don't be an industry average. The question is, for your channel, your category, what do your numbers mean? He said, so for example, for men, we would check our PSA. He said, great. He said, check your PSA at 50, then at 55 or maybe 60, you check it again. And he said, so you check it, it should be between 1 and 5, and yours is a 2. He said, is that good or bad? I'm like, well, that's really good. It's in the middle. He said, is it good? You check it again in 5 years? Well, so it's a 5. You're like, whoa, what happened there? He said, had you been checking your PSA every year, you would have seen that it went from a 0.5 to a 0.75 to a 1.25 to a 2.5 to a 3. And he said, as numbers guys, you want to be on the front end of that trend, not the back, and let it happen to you. He said, so are you tracking your data? And I said, what? He said, what about your cholesterol levels? What does it look like for your A1C? What does it really look like for your blood panel? Like, is your glucose levels up or down? And then when I realized when I got checked, all mine were way within the average. Well, over the last 10 years, every month on my birthday month, I get a full blood workup, everything taken care of, and I walk in with my spreadsheet. And I've seen multiple doctors, and they're all looking at me like, why? If I had this history, not industry averages or a male this age average, when I look at your data, and I can show them now about 12, 13 years of every year's worth of data across about 40 different elements, he said, that doesn't look good. I can see it's trending in the wrong way because it's gone from 0.2 to 0.6 to 0.7. But 0.7 is still in the middle. And so that's changed the way I looked at my medical history. So my encouragement to anyone listening here, don't overthink this. Most medical insurance companies pay for a free physical every year and a free blood workup. Just get the blood workup, come to me, and we'll put the spreadsheet up. You don't even have to figure it out. I've already got the if-then formulas and conditional. I've got the colors, got everything you need, in there. But you look at that, and then as we look at data for our business, then you start looking at your health data, and you're like, I'm on the wrong trend. This is not good. So it makes you exercise differently, do health things differently. So then you fast forward. I had some autoimmune things kick in. And if people are listening, you try to figure out autoimmune is something that you're born with, and it's normally kind of a sleeper issue over here. And it's not something that's going to kill you, but it can make your life kind of rough. And most people understand like thyroidism, you hear of that. Some people have Crohn's and different things where you just, your system kind of gets impacted by those things. Well, in my case, about 10 years ago, I actually had been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and I had never had a cavity, and went to the dentist, and they gave me a shot of Novocaine to go work on a tooth. And then my mouth just erupted with major issues, blisters, all kinds of problems. And then 3 months later, seeing oral surgeons, doctors, everyone I could, Dr. Chris Schock, who's a dermatologist here, did a biopsy and realized, Rick, you've got an autoimmune issue that we need to talk about. So he said, I need you and your wife to come here after hours at 4:30. Don't worry, it's not cancer. Now, I'm 4 years into the machine at Field Agent, already taking private equity money. We are driving the machine. I mean, I'm working like crazy. So I walk into this room, and you can appreciate this if you're a type A competitive guy. Walk into the room. There's 3 nurses here. Chris is there with his partner. There's 2 chairs. He said, Rick, you and Kim are sitting here. Kim is here because you're not going to hear a word I say. We haven't had the conversation yet. He said, Rick, this is an autoimmune disease. You'll never be healed. Okay, we only treat the symptoms. And I got to ask the question. He said, you're already not listening to me. You're trying to figure out how to fix it. I'm telling you, you have no control over this. It will not be fixed. Like, okay. He said, so how are you doing with sleep? I said, oh, fine. I said, I get plenty. He said, I'm not talking to you, Rick. Talking to your wife. She's like, well, he works all day long, comes home for dinner, hangs out with the kids, do sports, whatever. We do homework. Then everyone's in bed by 10. Then he kicks in at 10. He's working until around midnight 1. Gets up at 5 the next day, does his cycling, works out. He's getting 5-6 hours of sleep. He said, Rick, those days are gone. He said, you are going to get 7.5, 8 hours sleep because the number one issue, there's 2 primary issues with autoimmune. They're triggered by stress and sleep. So you have to get sleep. He said, how are your stress levels? I'm like, oh, great, I can handle it. And my wife starts laughing like that. He's like, Rick, I didn't ask you the question. I'm looking at your wife. She's like, oh, he's one of those stressed out people. I'm not like, hun. And it's not that I couldn't handle the stress, but the body feeling. He said, those days are over. Wow. You've got to reduce stress. Now, if you don't do these things, this autoimmune issue you have is going to continue to be a nuisance to the point where it's going to affect your, not your longevity, but it's going to affect your quality of life. So, like any other, it's like, yeah, I got it. Yeah. I'll do what I can. But I still worked pretty hard driving. Did a better job with sleep and reduce some stress. Within a year ago, but another autoimmune kicked up. It's another story for another day. But now, buy a company in France. I got 3 trips over there. Got COVID a couple of times. The business is growing. We're negotiating for another company. And I could just feel... Right. Mouth is acting up, everything's a mess, to the point where I was going from every 6 months having an issue to where every single day I had an issue. And then in my prognosis, it goes from the mouth to the throat to the eyes. It went to the throat. I've got my doctor, my wife saying, what are you doing? We had this conversation. You've got to step back or you're going to have major issues in a few years. So I'm like, well, I think I can still push. They're like... Those days are gone. I'm like, wow, I really don't have control. And for me, from a quality of life standpoint, I've done all the things I think I need to do, but I know now that the sleep and stress is going to be the key thing. And then the trigger, so I went to my private equity group in December, had this conversation. I said, I'm all in, but you need a guy that can come in here to put the 50, 60, whatever the hours are, to go eat, live, sleep this thing. I said, I simply can't. It'd be a disservice to the company for me to be the leader to take this next acquisition where it needs to go. So it made sense. Ty was an executive in residence, and so we spent 6 months transitioning. That's great. Now, to go on top of that, I'm still in the middle of negotiations. I got French banks. I got stuff. I have this. My Dr. Moore, still looking at me like, when are you going to I said, we got to get this acquisition, closed. And then about a month ago, after my wife and I spent an afternoon in the ER, where I've got these chest pains coming in, thinking, oh, am I having a heart attack? 3 doctors later, they're like, you're fine, you're distressed. You're fine, you're distressed. I'm like, what do you mean? I've got this pressure. And he's like, well, your body is telling you that you've got to deal with that. So the good news is, passed all kinds of stress tests, I'm going to be fine. But the thing that I'm encouraging people to listen to this is that I thought I could control it, and I could, but at what cost? Right. For the first time in my life, I realized that as a 62-year-old guy, and my mom's side of the family, dad's side of the family, all living into their 90s, what quality of life am I going to have for the next 30 years if I don't get this stress and back this off so that I can still be an influencer and engage, but I can't be an operator. And that was the reality that hit us. Like, gosh, I just can't be an operator now. And it all started with monitoring your health, being focused on it. And when the data came in with no emotion, the data came in from your doctor saying, you can overthink this. You can think you can push through, but this is a fact. Sleep and stress and what you're going through is going to impact you, and you can't outthink and outwork this. And I'm like, finally. So that's where I am today.
Wow.
Feeling good about the decision, but a crazy journey.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that very personal story, and for all of us, Rick. I mean, blessings to you, and
thank you.
And I think it sounds like you have now made those decisions, and you're moving forward and taking care of yourself. Sounds like you've got Ty's going to be a great leader to step in and lead the organization, and you still, as you said, you're going to have a major influence in the organization and more probably in the people's lives. Yeah.
Well, but we can't underemphasize for people listening to this. If I told you to only check your business every 5 years, you'd laugh at me.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And I'm not saying check it every month. Now, again, you need to check blood pressure. But at a minimum, once a year, you should check this, and it's not going to cost you anything other than a prick in the arm and a 30-minute visit with your doctor. If that's the only thing you've learned from this, do that tomorrow.
I think that's some of the greatest advice there. Look at those numbers like it's your business.
Yeah.
And because that's what we do. You're right. Rick, thank you so much.
Sure.
Before we let you get out of here, you have lived in this space of retail, omnichannel, and analytics and all of that. As you think broadly for a moment, and you look forward, where is this future going in retail and omnichannel? What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm kind of a principle guy. You put these principles together and see how it's playing out, and to see if that is true. 10 years ago, we talked about these pendulums. Oh my goodness, everything's going to be online. The brick and mortar is going to go away forever. You and I look at that and like, wow, in principle, that's not going to happen. Right. Oh my goodness, people aren't going to shop anymore. It's all going to be delivered to their home. They're going to stay in their homes and never going to shop again. I'm like, nah. In principle, that's this. So what I think today, and this is what we do with the Field Agent all the time, is you're looking at data and trends. I think we've probably seen the pendulum settle a little bit as it relates to a hybrid workforce, as it looks at a hybrid shopper. And I think we're kind of at this point now to where we can stop second guessing. I think the delivery, the pickup, the .com, the walking in retail, I think we're at a point where it's fairly stable. Again, anything can happen, Andy, and something tremendous tomorrow could happen. I don't think drone delivery is going to change everyone's life, even though we're playing with it. But I think we're at a point now to where I try to tell people, treat this as your new norm going forward. Don't say, well, I wonder if this is going to change. I wonder if this is going to change. I just don't think, and again, you have other guests on here that know more about Walmart world and suppliers and what they're looking at. But I think from a principal standpoint, unless something major happens, the next 3-5 years, this is our business going forward. So now let's understand from a demographic, and I'm really trying to create profiles, what does a hybrid shopper look like? I've got Sally over here that takes her kids with her, or I've got Billy over here that walks around and doesn't use a cart. I mean, it's all the old things we talked about, these shoppers. Well, have you really started to look at the delivery, pickup, .com, hybrid kind of person and begin to profile them, because they may be more different than you think, as opposed to say, well, this is a .com shopper, this is the delivery pickup type. No, I think they're going to go across, and I have enough engagement with that and seeing data and personal friends to realize I think we've settled, and I think we have a new norm now.
Right.
Now, I can't predict the future and tell you something crazy isn't going to happen in 4 years. I don't know. I didn't think it happened. I didn't think COVID was going to happen.
Right.
But I think it's here to stay, and this hybrid thing is important.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think we are in the new norm, and you've described that very well. And like you said, there's going to be improvements and advancements and all of that in this new norm. No question about it. I will say it's an exciting place to be in retail today.
It is.
It is so exciting, Rick. Rick, Wes, thank you. It is so great to have you here. And I appreciate you so much for coming in, really opening up to our viewers. Thank you for that. It means so much. And as I said earlier, we only wish the best for you, your family, and of course, the organization. Thank you.
Andy, thank you. Enjoyed being here. Looking forward to our third time.
Definitely.
We'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I definitely will. Okay, Rick West, the chairman of Fuel Agent. So how does that sound?
It's got a pretty good accent. It's a pretty freeing ring to it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, okay, Rick. Thanks again. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you again. Thank you. Share this. Tell your friends about doing business in Bentonville. We appreciate all that you do for us. It means so much. Rick West, again, thank you. It's been a great conversation.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.